Charles, is there an extra microphone for questions? Yes, folks, I know it's 10 a.m., but there may be one or two more people circling the library looking for a parking place. And so I'll give them a few seconds of grace. So when I was teaching engineering and class was about to begin, I would just amble orally, verbally. I would say things, I tell a joke. Most of my jokes are now inappropriate, so I don't tell jokes anymore. Well, what I'm going to do is introduce myself and the Civic League. More people come in there. They're just like the classroom. There are plenty of seats, plenty of sun, none in the back. Can you hear me, or do you hear me? Or do you hear? I can. Late great senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd, had a way of letting the microphone get away from his face. And just about the time people were looking very perplexed. Hello. Sure did wake people up. Okay. I'm Lee Saperstein. I'm a member of the executive committee of the Civic League, and thank you for coming to the annual summer forum. No jokes, real stuff. The Civic League was founded over 130 or 140 years ago as the Nantucket Improvement Association. It has grown into a network, an umbrella of 23 area associations. If you want to participate in the Civic League, join your area association. I'm secretary of the Nantucket Town Association, originally written as anybody who lives within a mile and a half of Main. Very defined, be a member of the town association, no matter where they live. Now, I'm still waiting for a few more people, and in the hopes I'm going to transmit some very important stuff. The mission of the Civic League, as written then and as believed now, is to promote the general welfare of Nantucket through 4 key areas. We want to preserve the island's resources, so preservation becomes a key. We want to improve the quality of life. Quality of life means different things to different people, but it's the ability to walk on the sidewalk or go to sleep at night without loud noises or anything else that you believe to be quality of life. We have an element of education in island issues, and this is part of it. And the other part of it is our 4th key area, participation in island governance. And so I thank you for coming. I thank the members of our select board and our town manager for sharing. I'd like to point out that a number of our key department heads are here if specifics are needed in question answering. I don't want to pick on one particular department head, but Chief Cranston, you made the New York Times, Sunday's paper, business section. All right. At the table, starting with Dr. McNabb, Dawn Hill Holgate, who's chair of the select board, Tom Dixon, and Brooke Moore, we have members of the select board. And then at your far left, their far right, Libby Gibson, town manager. I asked them the Abbott and Costello question, who's on first? And I was told, start with the first person you introduced, and they'll move down the table. Malcolm, it's on you. Microphones deal with the Senator Byrd effect when your voice drops, but more significantly, it ensures it goes onto the recording because people who are not here will be able to watch in a YouTube video. And I should have thanked NCTV will be producing that video. So Malcolm.
All right, well, wow. Thank you all for coming, and I'm certainly pleased to be here. I've been asked to do 5 minutes on kind of reviewing some of the activities of the Board of Health for the last year. The health department itself is doing pretty well. I think a highlight of the health department is we hired a new health director, Roque Miramontes, who is a lot of public health experience from the CDC. And we have Andrew Shapiro, who is now the environmental contamination administrator. And I think that's extremely important because obviously one of the major health issues of this island is PFAS. And he's really got his hands around that now. And you'll find if you tune into the Board of Health meetings every 3rd Thursday, he usually gives a very detailed report. And what's been great about having him on board is he's able to spend a lot of time on it. And particularly, he's had coordinated with the state. And I think in the past, some of our activities with the state have not totally been in sync. They're kind of, we're doing their thing with PFAS and we were doing our thing. But I think Andrew has really kind of got both groups moving in the same direction. We had a good year, but I think there were 3 issues that kind of came up at the Board of Health. Some of them not really resolved, unfortunately. Believe it or not, summer camp regulations. And I got a lot of flack and a lot of people screaming and yelling at the Board of Health because there are a lot of new state regulations about summer camps that the health department and the Board of Health are responsible for enforcing. Some of them were never enforced before, but there are a lot of new ones. And we haven't been able to really get them in sync with Nantucket. You know, Nantucket is always a little different than anyone else. But some of our camps have functioned not totally in sync with those regulations, and we've tried hard where possible to give variances to those regulations. of course, always keeping health and safety of our children. But that's an issue that really I don't think has been resolved, and I think the health department will continue to work with the summer camps to find resolution for it. I mentioned PFAS already, and I always hate to mention this term, short-term rentals, because that is always an issue. We were asked to look at perhaps altering some of the regulations for loud gatherings. We didn't do very well. We kind of got mired in the usual discussions of short-term rentals, and that is still not resolved. And the last unresolved issue that we have is IA septic systems. And the Board of Health has traditionally granted nitrogen loading variances to allow for bedrooms in property, for more bedrooms in property when an IA system is installed. But recently, there's been a lot of questions and challenges and suggested that increasing the number of bedrooms on a property is more detrimental to the health environment of the island, and it sort of outweighs any benefits of the AI system. So since the board adopted AI regulations, well, actually now several years ago, there have been a lot of new developments. Some of the systems are not so good. Some of the systems are absolutely fabulous. And of course, the ones that are most efficient, the ones that are the best, are of course the most expensive. So maybe we have to really look at having a little more regulations about what kind of system to put in, but that's something for the board to decide. So it was a moratorium was placed on those variances at least till September, so the board could have a chance to sort of sort this out. And last Thursday, the board had a great expert from off island who talked about a lot of these issues. And of course, that all needs to be resolved. But it's an issue. A lot of people have sort of felt it was their right to put in a new bedroom if they put in an AI system. A lot of people said, well, that's great, but how many more bedrooms can the island take? It's like a cumulative effect. It's like one swimming pool itself is not an environmental hazard, but over 1,000 might be. One or two more bedrooms, maybe okay, but how many more can we have? And on a given property, particularly on a given property in a certain environment, does adding more bedrooms justify having an AI system? So that's something the board is going to be sorting out in the next month. And I'm no longer on the board. My colleague Tom is now the select board representative. So I give him those three issues unresolved. Thank you.
Good morning. I am going to talk about our island home and other large capital projects this morning. So at this annual town meeting, after well over a decade of planning and thinking and analyzing what is the best way to maintain the future services of our island home on Nantucket, which is a skilled nursing and rehab facility. We had needed a 2/3 vote at town meeting, which failed by a relatively small margin, and then passed at the majority at the ballot by also a relatively small margin. So we're now in rethinking phase. We are going to develop a survey to try and get at a little bit more of the why people did or did not vote the way they went. We are going to think about rebidding the project with an alternate that could remove a wing, which would drop the number of beds, possibly remove some of the extras that are great for the long term, but are high cost items like the solar and the geothermal. We may re-review some of our agreement with Sherburne Commons on the housing components that were included, and other layout possibilities. We would have to do a new analysis on operational costs if we have less beds in a smaller building. We're in discussions with the land bank on what role they could play in a potential acquisition of the current East Creek site, which we would like to put a senior center there, or some other town use, but there may be a way for the land bank and the senior center to play a role in that. So we're in preliminary discussions on that to figure out what the best thing is to bring back to the annual town meeting. I think rather than a closure plan, which is really those are the two options at this stage. We will keep it running for as long as we can, but it's inevitable that the current facility will have to close if we don't build a new one. So there are other large capital projects. These have been referred to as collision projects, competing for the dollars of the taxpayers. The senior center would potentially be one. Again, that would be great if the land bank could play a role in developing that, because the current senior center is very inadequate. And we're kind of facing that across the board. The DPW facilities are inadequate, and that proposal failed at the annual town meeting. We are continuing a number of employee housing efforts. We did just complete the dorm on Waite Drive, and all of the lifeguards have moved in. So that's really a big win. And we're continuing to acquire long-term leases as well as home ownership to be able to attract and retain key staff members. Somerset sewer extension. We are moving in the direction of expanding the sewer into the Somerset parcels rather than the full extension to Nantucket. And we have acquired a piece of property for the pump station. So that was approved. Park and Rec is continuing a number of efforts on the fields, parks, playground improvements, the Tom Nevers debris and erosion control, which is very complicated, and improvement of our concessions, jetties, children's, Surfside. A big thing that we need to continue to analyze and try and move forward is central offices. We have a lot of failing buildings that we just keep putting money into, and we don't have enough space to provide the services that this community needs. And in a more efficient way, if we could build something where all of the offices were in the same building. So those are some of the big things that we're looking forward on. And there's many other things in the works that people will get to. If people have more specific questions, we do have our housing director here. We have our park and rec director here, and a number of other staff members to get more in depth if there are questions. Thank you.
Good morning, all. As Malcolm noted, we switch our seats every year for committee appointments. So I was on Affordable Housing Trust, and now I'm Board of Health, and now Brooke has back AHT. So I'm going to do the housing update because she has solid waste today. So there is so much happening in affordable housing land, in the housing office land. And the Municipal Housing Director, Christy Frantella, who's here in the back, is going to do an update at the Select Board this Wednesday. So my little report here is not going to be as in-depth. If anybody's interested, please tune in on Wednesday or watch the recording after. There'll be a lot more details on that. So I'm just going to go through some of the housing program achievements, recent progress, and key initiatives lately. We get into these acronyms. Subsidizing Housing Inventory List, which is what prevents unfriendly 40Bs. We added 3 units, bringing us to a total of 6.55% of our 10%, which is 405 units, with a goal of getting towards 618 units. And that number shifted halfway after the U.S. Census in 2020, which added a bunch of units. So the housing office had to completely recalibrate to get that number back on track so we could stay on track with SHI list concerns, et cetera. Other successes are closing cost assistance. which is a wonderful program that the trust is able to offer. They were able to help 6 families with their closing costs assistance. There was one covenant which was closed for a family, and the housing office added a deputy director to their staff, who is Dylan Mechempel, who is terrific. And also town meeting support. The funding continued. Basically, all the stakeholders got together on town meeting floor and laid out a rationale. And luckily, the community supports what the initiatives are. So that's very positive for that, because as everybody knows, we've been trying to do a transfer fee through the state for over 10 years now, and that's been really difficult to get through. And there's further advocacy on that. And a couple other little things: summer internship program. The housing office has 3 interns, Chase, Tom, and Will. I hear they're terrific and doing lots of good stuff for Christy and Dylan's team. And Christy's office worked with the 8th grade at Cyrus Pierce for their civic final projects, which is great. A couple other little things: vacant land developments, 10 Parker and 55 Fairgrounds Road. This would be home ownership opportunities for the missing middle, as we call it, because for AMI, area mean income, the scales here, as Malcolm said, Nantucket is kind of unique with everything. We have the same issues as every other community. We're just pushed so far on the outlier scale, especially with home prices and land costs, that we have to apply what the market is here. So that's all the way to 240 AMI. And that's the missing middle. It's just how it is here. There's a bundled RFP out there, which is Orange Street, Vesper Lane, Bartlett Road, and 7 Amelia Drive. That is rental units, up to 64 units. That's great. And 2 other successes: the Lease to Locals program. 1 and 2 year results with a $450,000 grant from the Affordable Housing Trust. The program incentivizes homeowners to convert underutilized housing into affordable year-round rentals. So there were 34 properties. It's kind of difficult without looking at it, but just in short, 34 properties, a total of 81 people housed, 68 qualified tenants, and that keeps folks in year-round renters and helps make up the delta between, say, what a short-term rental would be and somebody's year-round rent. So that is a new program. And then something that I was working on with the trust when I'm off, and I think they discussed it last week, which is the year-round deed restriction pilot program. So that was developed with comprehensive program guidelines, received select board approval for those guidelines, and we approved $3 million in program funding. That is, along with this new basket of tools that we're going to have with the Affordable Homes Act and Seasonal Communities Designation, which is probably a 12-hour podcast primer class on all that. It's complicated, but it is extremely important. And that, and Tucker Holland and his board's new Nantucket Land Trust, these are the kind of solutions which are going to make up. There is no silver bullet for affordable, attainable housing. It is a basket of solutions. So that is excited. And then looking ahead, shy list expansion to get to the elusive 10%, to stop unfriendly 40Bs, potential good landlord tax exemption, and further state level advocacy for the transfer fee possible through the Seasonal Communities Designation. We work very closely with Senator Sear and Rep. Moakley's office. Senator Sear is the chair of the Joint Housing Committee in the legislature. And he is very, very aware of the unique challenges the Cape and Islands have with housing and procurement challenges and building costs and on and on. There's just so much to it. So a lot going on in the housing office. Thank you for being here today. And myself or Christy can take any questions after.
Hey, everybody. I have 2 topics, solid waste and offshore wind. Can't wait. So on the solid waste front, a group of us have spent the better part of 2 years planning for executing the request for proposals and ironing out the contracts for the new solid waste contract. with Waste Options, who were the only bidders on the RFP. That contract begins December 1st. And in preparation for that change in the relationship, we all voted to acquire all of the physical assets out at 188 Nantucket Road, and that includes the transfer fee, also known as the transfer station, also known as the C&D building, and the whole digester complex with the buildings attached to it. And the reason for acquisition of those buildings, or the rationale, was that as we control all of the site, we are much more control over dictating the terms of how the relationship between the operator and the town works, to foster greater transparency and also help us balance the budget more clearly, because the financial relationship between Waste Options and the town is far clearer than it had been in the prior 25 years. So as we work up to that transition on December 1st, Waste Options has been executing a number of repairs on facilities out there, including at the digester complex and the C&D building and around the whole facility. So there's been a full assessment so that when we take these assets on, they're in really good operating shape. There was some media attention to the digester being down in the off season. That is an annual thing that happens. Sometimes the maintenance is more extensive and takes a little bit longer, but that is SOP and was not unusual at all. And I just wanted to clear that up. And then the other thing that's really exciting is we're going to be putting in a second scale, which should speed the way in, way out process, reduce the line. And that project is coming forward this year. There's some procurement that has to be done on a building that will be housed between the two scales. But that's been a long time coming and is very exciting for any of you who actually go to the landfill and way in and way out. It will make a huge difference, especially for commercial folks. We're also undertaking a landfill cell utilization review, and what that is doing is assessing the current cells, whether there's space sort of between the piles, how to maximize the use of the cells, permitting for new cells. And that will allow us to quantify and monitor the lifespan of the landfill portion of 188 Nantucket Road. And just to be clear, I think the number is 10% of our waste stream actually gets landfilled, and 90% is either processed through the digester into compost or transported off island. So we are not, the old days where you dumped everything off and it went in the pile are long over. And that is largely because it's smart environmental practice. It's also based on changing state regulations. There are dozens of waste stream. We have to collect and segregate waste in dozens of ways: mattresses, metals, batteries, all of it. So the operation out there is extremely complex, and the state dictates a lot of that. One of our biggest challenges is that we do have to take a massive amount of waste off island to meet those state requirements. And so you may have heard about negotiations with Robert B. Auer, who acquired the old steamship freight boats. And we're working with the Steamship Authority and Robert B. Auer to try to find out if there's we can create more capacity so that things don't pile up in the way that they do here when there's no steamship space in the summer and we get behind. So we're really trying to get ahead of the curve on that on the long term. So that's solid waste. Offshore wind. So we just passed the 1-year anniversary of the blade turbine event and the washing up of debris on our beaches, which was shocking to all of us and consumed a lot of my time last summer and throughout the last year. We were successful, and I believe very strongly in securing a really good settlement for damages from GE Vernova, $10.5 million, which we announced a week ago Friday. That negotiation process was long and difficult, and the outcome was really good for the community. I can say that with all confidence, given the scenario. What that settlement will allow us to do is use an independent administrator to set aside funds so that local businesses who had financial hardship or harm from the turbine incident will be able to make claims, and those claims will be adjudicated locally, not by massive corporations whose incentive is to minimize outlay. So what we did is we negotiated on behalf of all the local businesses that stood up early on and said, hey, I can't do surf lessons, or I can't take charter boats out, or whatever, and they will be made whole on their economic harm. It also creates a precedent in the industry, which hopefully is a hard lesson for the industry in terms of, let's be careful up front so this doesn't happen again, so it doesn't cost you a lot of money when it does, if it does. And so that is part of the incentive for that large settlement. What is important to understand is that this settlement was made with GE Vernova. Vineyard Wind was not a party to the settlement. We did have to allow Vineyard Wind to be protected from litigation from the town with this settlement. And the simple explanation for that is GE Vernova, because they're the contractor, were financially liable for any settlements against Vineyard Wind, and they wouldn't settle unless we also released Vineyard Wind, because if later Vineyard Wind were sued and somebody got a lot of money, GE Vernova would have to pay it anyway. So that's the explanation for why we released Vineyard Wind. But what we didn't do is release Vineyard Wind from being held accountable for their lack of participation, their behavior through all of this. And there will be a lot of information coming around our advocacy work to hold Vineyard Wind's feet to the fire in terms of their behavior at that wind farm off our shores. And so stay tuned, more to come imminently on that. And it is my hope, and has been, and I've been saying this since the blade turbine incident happened, is we were the first victims of an industry that is new in the East Coast of the United States. What we can do as the victim of this harm is advocate on a state and federal level for better rules, regulations, response plans, and expectations for the industry writ large, and that is what we will continue to do, advocating with federal regulators and our state representatives and federal representatives, and so that we remain in Nantucket as protected as possible from an industry whose regulation and permission is completely out of our control. So we can't stop it, because we don't have the authority to stop it, but we certainly have the power to advocate and use our voice to the best of our ability to protect Nantucket going into the future. So I took way longer than 5 minutes. I didn't expect that. On to Libby.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here. According to my notes, this is the 18th annual forum. So we always appreciate the opportunity to present our information and take Q&A at the end. I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of the 2025 annual town meeting, as well as some other town programs, projects, initiatives, and activities that have been occurring over the past year. So the 2025 annual town meeting, which was held on May 3rd, I think, can't remember that far back, and the 5th. We had 104 articles. We had 112 in 2024. We grouped the articles by kind of like category. We had 37 zoning articles. We had 22 of those in 2024. We had 14 general bylaw articles, 9 real estate articles, 7 home rule petitions, all of which were resubmittals. We had already approved them at prior town meetings, and 26 citizen articles. We had 27 in 2024. We increased our public outreach prior to town meeting, and our communications division is really crushing it on a lot of public outreach activities. We had more videos, more project explanations. We had, including videos on how town meeting works. That was kind of a new little series. We inserted QR codes into our voters guide so that if people wanted more information about a particular project, they could go to the QR code and get it from the town website. We also we'll work on improving this, but we tried to get our speakers prepped ahead of time so that they would make presentations on the articles, and rather than just launching into the article, so that voters could get a better overview of what they were being asked to vote on. We had 5 articles that were contingent upon ballot questions. There was a 1 capital exclusion, 4 debt exclusions. Those had mixed results. We also had 1 non-binding warrant article and 1 non-binding corresponding ballot question, which related to whether or not to pursue a town council form of government. Our budget for fiscal 26 was which is the current year that we're in now, was totaled as approved 140,613,000 rounded. That's up about 7.3% over last year's budget, fiscal 2025. In fiscal 25, we were up about 12.5% over fiscal 24. So just to give you an idea of how the budgets are going. Articles that generated the most discussion at FinCom and the select board level preceding town meeting and perhaps at town meeting included short-term rental articles. We had zoning and general bylaw articles, car rental agencies, sewer district expansions and zoning, Our Island Home, and DPW. So that's a quick overview about the 2025 annual town meeting. Current town projects and programs, initiatives, and activities that we're working on include continual updating and implementing really of the select board strategic plan. We are currently working to procure consulting services for our update, which we typically do in the fall with the board through a retreat. We're kind of regrouping on the DPW and Our Island Home projects. Personnel, we've done a lot, put a lot of effort into hiring and retaining employees. Some highlights from last year's forum include nearly full staffing for police and fire, more vacancies filled in DPW. Facilities is still quite challenging, as was mentioned earlier. We have a lot of remote buildings. They're not centralized. They all require various levels of maintenance. They're all in varying, sometimes not great conditions, and they require skilled people to take care of them. And those are hard to find and put on staff. So we end up having to contract a lot of that out, and that is also challenging. We hired a deputy housing director. We added an additional real estate staffer. As Dr. McNabb said, we hired an environmental contamination coordinator, as well as the public health director. We added additional IT staff. We have a very solid cybersecurity division, I guess I would say, within IT. And that is enhanced through lots of training throughout the year with all staff. We have a dedicated full-time projects manager in town admin. We really need another one. Their focus is on large projects. Collective bargaining will be starting this fall for the union contracts that expire at the end of June of next year, 2026. We're starting planning for the 2026 annual town meeting. We have a lot of transportation projects underway, including Surfside area roads, annual sidewalk work, paving challenges. We have a lot of challenges with paving. We have a lot of paving to do, as does everybody else that's not part of the town, and we have 1 paver. And the addition of another paving company is quite challenging due to the permitting that's required to set up an asphalt plant. We're working on stormwater regulations. I won't go into the waste services agreement that Ms. Moore talked about, but that was very much focused on over the year. PFAS is very much an ongoing high-level activity. Facilities maintenance, we're exploring AI in town policies and usage throughout town government. We're testing it out right now in a variety of ways, including minute taking. We're starting a real strong focus on encroachments. I won't really pinpoint a particular area, but there are very specific areas around town that tend to have a spike in encroachments, including stakes and boulders put in areas that are not actually private and are available for parking. Planning for large capital projects, most of those were mentioned. Communications, where we've got a lot going with getting public outreach out there, housing, coastal resilience planning, and planning for sea level rise and climate change. Mr. Fee was going to talk about those things. If people have questions about that, we maybe can answer them a little bit. Concessions review was mentioned. We're trying to plan for additional office and meeting space. We've completed a number of, some recently completed projects include the water main extension west of the airport, the Waite Drive dorm that was mentioned. In the Waite Drive area, there's also a new park area that was required by the state in connection with the Tacoma Green housing, which hasn't quite started yet, but it is going to be in that general area. Redesign of the two fairgrounds parking lot to fit some additional vehicles. We completed the town building window replacement and other exterior improvements earlier this year. That came in at just under $1.5 million. And one of our really proud accomplishments is the Jetties tennis courts reconstruction, which is being very well received. I am really going way over my time, but I just want to mention that and I timed myself too, and issues that are not necessarily part of town administration's projects or initiatives or the strategic plan, but they come up and they need immediate attention, and they kind of tend to overtake some of our regular work or projects that are underway. But those things include such items as the offshore wind issues that was mentioned. The fallout from the Vineyard Wind turbine blade failure of just about a year ago was a lot of work by a lot of people in town admin, including Ms. Moore, who spent a great deal of time on it, and as well as other board action. The level 1 drought and associated water usage restrictions that needed a lot of public outreach and still does, that's taken quite a bit of time. New federal grant assurances and other federal grant requirements or changes that came as a result of the new administration, that has required quite a bit of time, not totally unanticipated, but the depth of it is a little bit unanticipated. Unfunded governmental mandates and or unanticipated requests that need to be responded to, such as PFAS testing, reporting, the water main projects that had to get constructed. The 40B housing project, Surfside Crossing, that initiated around 2017, 18, and that is still lingering out there, and that has taken a lot of staff time as well. Real estate issues, property acquisitions that arise unexpectedly that need attention, and things like last year we were hearing that about the right whale vessel slowdown restrictions. We spent a ton of time on that. So we're trying to get things done, but stuff happens. And I'm going to stop now. I don't know if I guess we'll turn it over to Matt. Thank you. You came in just at the right time, Matt.
So I'd like to introduce the late, great Matt Fee. Oh,
No, I'm sorry, I'm late.
Matt, there's a little switch here. When the light comes on.
All right, there we go. Yeah, sorry, I'm in the bakery. All my plumbing's breaking, my ovens are breaking. It's summer. I'm on the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, have been for pretty much from the beginning. The plan is is complete. We've all voted it, et cetera. It's aspirational, but there's also 10 or 20 priorities that the Coastal Resiliency is working on. We are tracking our progress and still trying to figure out how to pay for everything is sort of, I think, the safe way to say it. The priorities that are on the table now, downtown flood barrier for like Easy Street. We've been working on the Washington Street corridor in partnership with the Land Bank, which has been really helpful. And that is giving a really good example of the sort of public input that has to happen for these projects. The neighbors there have concerns. They've come to various meetings. Those concerns are being addressed. And then we're realizing how much there really is involved with the process, sort of from sort of cost, but not even just cost, all the other items, stormwater and sort of all that stuff. We're not spending as much time at CRAC, but the staff is spending a lot of time on Baxter Road, alternative access. Vince is doing a great job on that. But it's, as you can imagine, it's complicated. It's not there's a lot of sound bites out there about, oh, all you got to do is retreat. All you have to do is this. You can just abandon the road. Well, it's not quite that simple. State laws haven't caught up with the realities of climate change yet. And we are working through a process that I think is sort of threading the needle pretty well. There's an issue at Tom Nevers, debris removal from and erosion control from the old naval stuff that was there. And then we're worried about, some of this is a town priorities, worried about the wastewater treatment plant. And, so there's a study underway to review what erosion control measures are needed and how we're going to do that there. So that's my assignment. Now, I'll throw a couple other things out. Libby loves it when I do this, but a couple things. I was fortunate to be off island for like the third time since COVID the other day. One of my employees was walking the Appalachian Trail. He's out in Great Barrington, so I went and saw him. So I spent a little time in Great Barrington, a little bit of time in Hudson, Hudson, New York, which is a town that was founded by Nantucket people, and they have proprietors, and they had a similar structure as we had here, and a lot of the architecture, it's amazing. A lot of the architecture is similar. It was a whaling community, Hudson was, and it went into decline for a lot of the same reasons that Nantucket did. It's got a prison there now, and it's sort of up and coming. But what it made me realize, being in both of those towns during the weekdays, was how fortunate we are that we have, sort of a summer season that isn't just every weekend. We have people that come for a whole week and enjoy the island for a whole week. But it was very clear from the signs on the doors everywhere and the various businesses that they sometimes don't even open Monday to Thursday. A lot of them. And the good parts in Hudson is that they're like Nantucket was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's a little rough around the edges. There's individual owners in all the stores who think they know better than, the big box retailers. Back in the day, it was Macy's. They knew better than Macy's, but now they know better than the big box retailers. But it was just interesting to compare kind of what we have with, what is happening elsewhere. There was, if anyone's paying attention, we're in the middle of a master plan. We had a kickoff, and Chuck Marone, who does Strong Towns, you can look it up, and he spoke at the kickoff. And I think it was very applicable to what we're dealing with. It was a talk about how it's easy to sort of get money for all the infrastructure and the sewer and everything, and you grow. But then all of a sudden, towns across the whole United States don't have the money to maintain it. They've done a pattern of growth that isn't dense any longer. It's wide apart. It's wide. It's, and there's no money to pay for it. And it sort of rung true. We've been talking about it since the comp plan days that this would happen, and everyone kind of looked at me and some of the other people like we had two heads, but it's kind of what we're facing now. And I think it's, so when Libby talks about, lack of resources, et cetera, it's very true. We've grown like more in 30 years than we did in the first 300. And we have a lot of deferred, items that have to be dealt with that I hope people are somewhat patient on and hopefully figure out how to way to do it. The only other thing is just on this topic, and I'm sure the other stuff's going to come up when we have conversations, there was in the 80s, there was a guy, Butler, and he did a life cycle of tourist resorts. And it's very interesting. I'll give you the steps. It starts out exploration, involvement, development, and that's when you're advertising and you're bringing people there. Then you're doing consolidation, which is you're starting to you're getting sort of built out and you're trying to figure out how to do it. We're kind of either in this or the last one is stagnation. So we're kind of in the consolidation or stagnation. He talks about economic leakage, which means the money isn't staying on the island anymore. It's going off island. It's going to big investors who are investing in your tourist location. And so I think it's worth, Googling it or looking it up. Then these tour communities go into stagnation, and there's two choices. You can either take care of, you can rejuvenate it, and you can rejuvenate it with sort of sustainability. You can take care of the island, in my theory, and it will take care of us. Like you can do that, or you can go down the path that some do, and you can add you know, they'll do casinos and they'll build high-rise hotels and they'll do a bunch of other things to bring even more people and more building and more stuff. And they're ruining the things that made people want to come to that location to begin with. Nantucket has a chance of staying on the sustainable good side of it. We've saved a lot of the land, et cetera, but we need to still be vigilant. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have is we get pressured and the town gets pressured for grow, grow, grow and subsidize this and subsidize that. And this is our right, that kind of pressure. But I think people have to realize that that comes with a huge cost. And that if we don't figure out how to keep things that we love here and that people that come here love, then we will foul our own nest. I'm stealing that from Finn Murphy. And so that guy's name was R.W. Butler, and you can read about it. It's pretty interesting, but I think we're firmly in the consolidation or stagnation phase, and I think it's time for us to figure out how we're going to move forward sustainably. And I think we're seeing a lot of the issues that we're facing are like warning signs that we need to do that. And I always tell my kids, if you don't pay attention to something, it doesn't go away. You think it goes away. You don't file your taxes. You forget to pay a bill. You think, oh, all right, it's okay. They won't notice. It comes back, and it comes back even worse. You know, I tell that to my employees, my kids constantly. And so I think that's where we as a town are, is we've had some warning signs and some more warning signs, and we are working really hard to sort of find a path through that. So that's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you all. I just said thank you to the people up on the stage. Earlier, I did not say, but I am now, thank you to the Athenaeum who've provided this space. When I first came to Nantucket in the bicentennial year, 1976, and took my kids into this building, I said, wow, maybe there's a future here for us. So thank you, Athenaeum. Before we begin the question and answer period, is there more than one microphone up there? Scott Wilson, co-president of the Civic League, is going to be the microphone runner, and I will play moderator. Our members of the select board and our town manager have understood well that in the summer forum, they're going to get questions. And so, folks, it's now up to you to ask questions. Just a quick comment to Town Manager Gibson. It was the Nantucket Association that created the summer forum. And I think it was about 3 years ago, negotiated with the Civic League for us to take it over. We're pleased to be part of this process. And if you raise your hands, I'll call on you. Scott will provide you a microphone. And I see Randy Rager. Closer to you, Scott.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you for your service. It's extraordinary.
As you speak, your name, please.
Sure.
Just remember, it's being recorded, and that will help us on the YouTube.
Yeah, Ethan Jacks, my wife Muriel and I live in Surfside. Thank you for your incredible service. A daunting set of challenges, to be sure. Specifically, where does water supply fit in sort of the pantheon of priorities? If you could answer that.
Luckily, we have the Water Department Director, also known as the Director of the Wannacomet Water Company, Mark Willett.
Thank you. Mark Willett, Wannacomet Water. Thank you for the question. Water supply is huge, most important in my life and what we do. We've been working with the town and we continue to do that. We have plenty of good water. It's how to manage the water under our water withdrawal permit, which is governed by the state. So the whole drought thing is not Wannacomet's regulation. It's not the town of Nantucket. We're following regulations set forth by the Massachusetts Drought Committee and Commission. We have a task force that sets this out. We continue and will continue at Wannacomet through our commission. There's a commissioner here, Mr. Reinhardt. put all kinds of study and research into our aquifer. We're currently getting close to finalizing a full island-wide model, which gives us a better idea. For every water main extension that we do a model. For our new well approval, we're doing a model to figure out our pumping. And when I say model, we're looking at like 60 and 80 years out of pumping conditions to find out what we'll have. So we're not looking short term, we're not looking little term, we're looking big term, in depth, full build out analysis, which is what we need to do. But we're on it and we're doing it every day.
Thank you. Yeah, Scott to Randy.
Thanks. Randy Ringer from the Tom Nevers Civic Association. First of all, I'd like to thank the town and especially Mike Burns for all of the effort that went into and continues to go into making the Tom Nevers bike path a reality. Really a terrific job. Thank you. I was here a year ago and asked about the cleanup of the debris at the Tom Nevers Beach. At the time, I was told to get in touch with Vince Murphy. I did speak with him afterwards. Charlie Palacki was good enough to take me out on Friday to the beach to review what was going on, and I really didn't see any progress. And so what I'd like to understand and get us all on the same page is, what is the timeline for the cleanup of the debris at the Tom Nevers Beach?
Thank you.
I'm going to turn this to our Park and Rec manager, Charlie Palacki, and we have had very recent discussions about this. As somebody said earlier, it's not a simple project.
Thank you. Hey, Randy. This is not a simple project at all. It involves 9 different permitting agencies, both at the state and federal level. In March, we met with 5 or 6 of them, including MIPA, Mass DEP, CZM, and Army Corps of Engineers, and tried to apply for an emergency action, which was basically flat denied, unfortunately, at the federal level. So we're in the process now of design construction documents and proceeding with permitting. Our timeline, we hope, if everything goes smoothly, would be to put this out to bid in September with action in October and November. We'll issue an NOI with the Nantucket Concom, and that will start a 30-day timeline for us. So our hope is that we have a good contractor on island, hopefully, ready to roll. And as soon as that ink hits the paper, we'll start construction.
Thank you, Charlie. Who, by the way, works with Alan Reinhardt and me as Nantucket's cemetery administrator. And that's Charlie. We're members of the Cemetery Commission. Got a question here from Maureen Phillips.
Thank you. This is a perhaps more recent problem, but given a lot of the comments that Matt made about what we do about the future of this island and how we handle it, something of a symbol in a way, I think right now, is that old brick utility building on the waterfront that has now been approved to be demolished by the HDC. And I am wondering if there's anything that can be done about that particular issue. And also, is there a plan, if you will, for the rest of the waterfront? In the past, I've seen them, but I haven't seen anything lately. And it concerns me that one entity on the island can make that decision, and then that's gone for all of us. It's gone forever, and there's no chance to come in and do something different like what we were able to do on Easy Street. So I am speaking specifically about that brick building, but also a plan for the harbor area. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, just starting with the brick building, obviously that was an HDC decision. I have already been notified by Mary Bergman that she's appealing it. I've already been notified by Mary Bergman that she will be appealing that decision, so it will be coming to us. that larger piece of property that we've called Harbor Place in the past, where that building is controlled by National Grid, which is obviously a multinational company with changing players all the time. And now the remainder of the property, including the Stop and Shop parking lot where the tank farm was, that's all controlled by New England Development. So there's a progression of discussions on it. There have been different schematic plans, but it's really a matter of bringing those remaining two parties together with the town and finding the direction, which is just slow. It's slow moving. But in regard to that building, stay tuned because it's being appealed. You want to?
Hello, yep. No, I think for things to happen there, one of the, there's an ask for zoning changes, which we held off last time. So the town, the town has done some really good planning there. Andrew Voice did some really good plans that were connected streets and that would look like, so in keeping with the island and still be really nice for NIR and businesses overlooking the harbor. And it was going to include, raising some of it so that we would deal with sea level rise. So it really, the pieces are there. It's a question of sort of like Don said, it's taking a while. I was on the board when 106 Main Street was demolished. I'm not sure, some of you probably remember it. And I see a positive when that happened and the town was concerned about it. It got knocked down very quickly. So couldn't be an appeal and nothing could happen. This is fortunate that we're having an appeal and we're going to have a conversation about it. And so I think I look at that as, small steps. I was warned by Paul Durensis that, the government moves really slowly like a big ship. And I was young and I didn't believe him. But now that I'm old, I think he was absolutely right. So we've made a little bit of a move in the right direction.
Matt, I might add to that, as a part-time or one-time resident in Great Britain, the Battersea Power Station, coal-fired, iconic with 4 large smokestacks on the River Thames, was due to be pulled down because it was redundant. We weren't going to generate electricity from coal. Sad to say for my coal colleagues. It has been repurposed as a residential center, a shopping center, and it still stands on the River Thames with its 4 iconic towers. Not that we're going to necessarily do the same thing, but it's worth looking at. A question back here. Scott, you got to go all the way around.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ann Marvin. I'm the president of the Hummock Pond Association out by Cisco Beach. And I have a question really, I think, for Brooke, because you have done so much work on this. Just in following up your earlier comments, you mentioned that following the agreement with GE, you still have some room to hold feet to the fire in terms of Vineyard Wind. I'm curious what that might mean. And I'm also curious about upcoming future possible other wind farm developments. I think that my understanding is the town is taking a different view at maybe it's South Coast Wind is the next one. I'm just wondering what's happening with those possible future developments, and are you handling those any differently, or how are you looking at it?
Yeah, I would say one of the most difficult things about governing or being in leadership in government is people taking information they've learned today and applying it to decisions that were made yesterday. So there's been some frustration because I think I wasn't on the board at the time when the Good Neighbor Agreement was negotiated, but this board only has the information it has in front of it at the time it makes a decision, right? But we have the capacity to learn from those experiences, right? So I think our appeal of South Coast Wind is indicative of the learnings we had from the very first offshore wind farm on the East Coast that this town faced when negotiations on the Good Neighbor Agreement happened. We're dealing with it differently, absolutely. We decided to appeal it. We are very concerned about the cumulative impact of, 1,000+ wind turbines offshore. The fact that a blade break happened and we had that impact. So yes, we as a board take in new learnings and new information and think about every new decision differently. I'm not going to speak about specifics in terms of strategy because it may involve litigation, which does not happen in the public space. But suffice to say, we're not done with Vineyard Wind. And I'll leave it at that. And one of the things that we highlight in terms of accountability are the lighting system, communications, having a debris response plan. These are the things that we are going to be advocating for specifically, both in the public, wherever, by whatever means we have available to us. And I'll just leave it at that. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I was on the board when we originally did this, and I'm not sure I would do anything differently, because there's, contrary to some opinions, there's no magic turbine removal button, under Libby's desk. We don't have the ability to get rid of these things and get rid of them tomorrow. If she did, it's been such a headache, it would have been pushed, years ago. But the state and the feds are responsible for the siting of this, for the oversight of this, all the different aspects. And when we first became aware of this 3-5 years ago, whenever it was, we were fortunate to negotiate with the only leverage we have to get some benefit for the island. And that's what we did. I do think, how do we say, there's a lot of talk of cancel the Good Neighbor Agreement. That'll be better. And that would not be better. The Good Neighbor Agreement is one of the only documents we have. It's a contract. They're responsible to do the things they've said they'll do in that contract. So that's good for us. If we cancel it, then our chances of getting those lights put up are zero. And some of the talk is like, if you cancel it, then you can sue. Well, everyone that has opposed this and sued has come up against the states and the feds, and they've lost. So we are we're taking the positions that we at the time are the best based on the information that we have, which is what Brooke said. And there was also a lot of talk about, some of us being in love with wind farms or this or that and the other, and, not advocating, and why aren't we being harsher? And I think especially Brooke deserves credit for this. She made a lot of connections across all different aspects of this that were, very, very helpful for the town. And I think sometimes in the positions that we're in, it's easy to throw stones at us and say, we're wrong and we would have done something differently. But, and when we do, I'll throw stones at them or at myself. But I think in this case, we were very well served with some of the lawyers and some of the work that Brooke and the wind team we had did and are still doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Hands.
May I, please?
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm looking out there
Sorry,
now.
Lee, it's okay.
Go, please.
I was one of the original signers of that agreement. And what I have said recently is that the impact is far, far greater than what we were led to believe in the simulations. And I do believe that Vineyard Wind is not living up to their side, and that we will be continuing to talk about that. It has a far greater impact on the island, both visually and environmentally. And if anyone has the ear of the vice president while he's here, please say something. Thank you.
We could hold a sign up this afternoon.
Yep.
We have a question back here.
Hello, my name is Veronica Bonet, and sorry to continue on about the wind turbines. Everyone has worked really hard on this, and enormous amounts of energy have been spent by town government, by the select board, by a group, Act for Wales, that I represent. And it's exhausting. But I do have a question about New England Wind and the agreement that you guys have just signed. From where I stand, it appears that Vineyard Wind has been fully released from any liability due to the blade break, and that is in advance of the environmental study being released, from the root cause analysis being released. And they are, the same developer is one power purchase agreement away from steel in the water on New England Wind. And very little information. I see no evidence of the state or the feds doing anything to advocate for Nantucket. None whatsoever. We are alone. There's no one in state government worried about Nantucket. If you have evidence of it, please let us know. And certainly no one at the federal level. In other states, congressmen are pushing back and projects are going away. In Massachusetts, there is nobody advocating and projects are being built. And so I'm just wondering, on New England Wind and this study that's never been released, like, what leverage do you have left? It appears none, but if you have some, I think you should let people know what that might be.
Thank you.
I think I answered the question about how we're going to proceed with Vineyard Wind. And I would add environmental analysis and so forth is also part of their failure. And we plan to pursue that. So.
Thank you. Further questions? Got one here.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hyde, President of the Fishers Landing Association, and I'm going to give you some low-hanging fruit because those big picture items, I can appreciate they're very complex and you're doing an amazing job to juggle so much. Low-hanging fruit, while the waste management, DPW thing all gets considered, somebody needs to redouble their efforts to help keep Nantucket Road clean. The debris that blows from the site or from the carriers of trash to the site, it seems particularly egregious this summer. So point number one. Point number two, I learned through the process that with Fishers Landing now being part of the Nantucket Watershed District, many homeowners have been notified about the need to install upgraded septic systems. Some fail because they failed, but some are requiring replacement because of being in the watershed district now. What I learned when somebody reached out to me is that Board of Health policy is if you pursue a betterment loan, if you're a year-round resident, you're eligible for 100% financing of, I'm not exactly sure what category of the cost. I'm confident it doesn't include re-landscaping, but whatever the cost for the installation project is, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. 100% if you live on island as a year-round resident. Only 50% can be financed if you're a seasonal property owner. I just don't understand that discrepancy. I know you're not the Board of Health, but I put it out there for anybody who is affiliated to think about that inequity because we're all part of the same island. We're doing it because of resiliency and protecting the environment and everything else. I don't really have an appreciation for why there would be a distinction between two different types of residents. So I ask that that be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trash first. We would pretty much only be able to keep Nantucket Road clean with several full-time employees there 24/7. People are willfully littering. They are carelessly littering. They very often do not have secured loads. We've had the police out there. They are doing active enforcement. DPW, as best they can, is getting along to clean the road. I would urge people to take personal responsibility for your trash. And if you see any active littering by anyone, get the license plate number and report it. The clean team is out there. It's clean for about 10 minutes and then it goes right back. I drove out there myself on Saturday and I contacted the DPW director when I got to my destination and said, this is just disastrous. However, staff person this morning said they ride their bike every day along Nantucket Road out that way and said, I think it's been a lot cleaner lately. And I thought, are you blind? There's no way it's a lot cleaner. So it's troublesome on Nantucket Road in particular, maybe, because that is where people are going to take their trash. But I'm going to sidebar this. It's everywhere. Landscapers and construction people are among the worst offenders. And so are businesses that are in the outskirts of town and in town. They need to take community responsibility, go around the island and pick up the trash that is coming from their establishments. So duly noted about the trash on Nantucket Road. And I don't know if our public health director, Roki, could address the septic question. Roki, were you able to do that?
Good morning, Rocky Miramontes, Public Health Director. So the Betterment Loan Program is a state-funded program, so that we request the money from the state, comes here locally, and we distribute it according to their requirements. I certainly understand the difficulty in reviewing or considering the cost of these upgrades, but the IA systems, or the need for IA systems, that is a nitrogen sensitive area, the Nantucket area, and they we certainly want to ensure that as an island that we are protecting the island's resources, including water quality and nitrogen sensitivity.
Thank you. Additional questions? Scott, you have a question?
I do. What chance are we going to see the town council form of government article on a future select board agenda?
So I was the select board rep on the town council study committee, and they worked on it. We worked on it for about a year and a half. And this is one area where I have very strong opinions. And it went to town meeting and it went to the ballot and it got the numbers it got. And basically where we're at right now, or where it's at right now, is that the council is writing a final report to us, the select board, to submit, and then we will discuss. But I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is that a group of citizens will take this forward, because the numbers that were received at town meeting and at the ballot were not quite high enough where this would be a town article. I personally would never support it being a town article. I don't think it's a very proper look for the executive body to support dissolving the legislative body itself, but that is for future. So I think this will be a citizen-led group if so deemed, but stay tuned for further select board meetings with the report from the committee on their work.
I'm going to add a little bit of this, it's opinion as well. Town meeting asked us to form a study committee. We did we used town funds to support that process. We deliberately put the question as a non-binding question, both on the warrant and at the ballot. The logic of that is two different constituencies, right? People who show up to town meeting regularly, and then the people who don't come to town meeting but do come to the ballot. I actually thought that it was going to fail at town meeting, because why would the people who love town meeting vote against town meeting? And that it would pass at the ballot because the folks who don't come to town meeting would overwhelm, and it didn't. So to me, that was an indication that the information that the community has, that town meeting has, the voters have, on the benefits of potentially changing our form of government, it's not there yet. And so I would agree with Tom that I don't think it's incumbent on us as a community to expend community dollars and resources to pursue this effort, that it should be a private effort to literally convince enough people to move it forward at a future town meeting as a citizen warrant article. That's sort of where I stand on it.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Scott. I look out here and what I see is a sentiment for adjournment. And so with that, I'd like to thank everybody who's come, audience, presenters, staff. Give them a round of applause, please. And thank you all. We're adjourned.